number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
It's Patrick Cristiano, the publisher of TheaterLife.com, for Spotlight on the Arts, and I'm here with Bonnie Comley, the Tony Award-winning producer and founder of Broadway HD. We're in her offices of Broadway HD in this gorgeous bar building. Bonnie, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome to the bar building. Welcome to Broadway
This
HD.
building is stunning. Your offices are wonderful. We have all these incredible awards behind us.
Yes, we're very
that
fortunate.
you've garnered over the years. How exciting.
It is exciting. We love it. We love it.
Well, Bonnie, you have created a Trailblazers segment. What's it called?
It's called the Trailblazers Rail. And basically what it is it's a shelf that we are using to host shows that we want to highlight. So Broadway HD is a streaming platform, an on-demand streaming platform, and we have over 300 full-length stage plays and musicals, and you can search for them. We have them in these categories, what we call rails, that are musicals, drama, and then we have this new Trailblazers rail that we bring content up to the front of the app, so that things that you weren't necessarily searching for, but every month we're going to trade out and swap out new shows that we want to feature. And so we just launched this, and in honor of Women's History Month, we're doing a women's Trailblazer rail.
Focusing on diversity.
Focusing on women, specifically for this month, and it is women that are not only on screen, but composers and directors and playwrights, because there aren't enough of them on Broadway. The last season, there was 37 new shows, and of those new shows, there was only 4 women playwrights, authors, and only 3 women that were directing the shows of those new shows. So 3 out of the 37 new ones. So it's, there's plenty of room for improvement there, plenty of room to, really look at gender parity on Broadway. And it's our way to, as I said, just to highlight these people that, because it's not really a pipeline issue. There's plenty of talent out there. They just don't always get the opportunities. And so when we do see real terrific quality work that's being done by women or underrepresented voices, as I said, this month we're featuring women's voices to bring them and put them into a space where they're highlighted right at the top of our, when you go on to BroadwayHD.com, that you'll see them.
So what are some of the new shows
some of the shows that we're featuring, we have Heady Feather, which is a devised piece based on a book called Heady Feather, and Sally Cookson devised this theater, which means they're almost creating it as they go along in the rehearsals, and she did this brilliant job of directing this piece. That is just really very special. We also have Ernest Shackleton Loves Me, which is directed by Lisa Peterson. It's a 2-person show that features the music of Val Vagoda as the composer. And she's amazing. She is just amazing. And so to be able to capture this show the way that we did, it's really just an honor to have these women. We have
Broadway HD. I just want to insert this. Does a really fabulous job with the camera work. The way you capture the shows with the multiple cameras is extraordinary. Often there are better views from seeing. I mean, you see more than you could possibly see in the theater sometimes.
Yes, but nothing replaces the live experience. So, I appreciate what you're saying, and we do. I mean, that is Stuart Lane, who's the co-founder with me, and I believe that if you're going to go in and go to the effort of doing what we call a digital capture, which is either videotaping or shooting it or filming it, whatever you want to call it, of going into a theater and digitizing that experience, there's no point in doing it halfway. So we really believe to go in and do the best job to really do justice to those shows so that you do get a real sense of what it feels like, because not everybody can get to the theater. And even if you did get to see a show, this is a great way to then have a second experience with it. So Ernest Shackleton, as you said, you saw it. If you watched the digital capture, there's a camera on an arm that kind of goes sweeping across that you would never get those views sitting in one seat within the theater. So with our Broadway HD captures, we really do believe that you need to do justice to what's on the stage. And we do that from one of the first things is in hiring TV directors that love theater. So they're not going to change the integrity, because you could. You could go in with a camera and editing. You could change some of these pieces so that it's unrecognizable from what was on stage. But our point is to really do the best representation of these shows. So that's part of the thing that's just, it's so important for us, is to do quality digital captures of these shows. And then the second thing is the shows that we actually go in and do, that we shoot. We really want, we love all the same things that they do, that sells tickets to either a live show or to movies. You're looking for recognizable titles, recognizable names, for actors. But we really want the highest quality production values that you can get with this, and then to come in and digitally capture that. And we don't change anything. When we go in, we sometimes enhance things, but we're enhancing usually the sound, so that the sound that you hear would be basically the same thing that you'd hear if you were in the theater. So the sound comes directly from body mics of the actors, or head mics of the actors, and goes through a soundboard. So that's what we get. It's not, the actors are up there on stage and a microphone way in the back of the theater. We also enhance the lighting quite often, which is to make it look what your eye would see inside the theater is what the camera is now going to let you see on a screen. So it's bumping it up a little bit, so some things aren't quite as don't look as dark, because the camera makes it a little bit different. But other than that, we really don't change anything. We keep the vision of the people that created these shows. That's so important to us. That's what you're going to see, is what these people had in mind and what they're seeing when they look at that show. And we are fortunate enough that we've done so many of them, and then we have also aggregated this other content that we didn't produce, and we've pulled it onto our Broadway HD platform for people. So now we have over 300 shows, some of them that we license, but the people that we're licensing from have the same mission, is to, quality theater and really well done with the captures.
Every show that I've seen is extraordinary.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're really, we need to keep that level of quality consistent, because there's other stuff out there that's either the production values aren't there yet, or the show wasn't developed enough. Quite often people ask us, about shows that are being done that aren't on Broadway. And there are plenty of shows that are worthy of a bigger audience that don't make it to Broadway. And we do believe there's room to capture those as well, but we need it to be, the production values need to be top notch. So when we do our Broadway shows, it's all unionized. It's entirely unionized, and that guarantees a level of quality. So any Broadway show that we're asked to do, we look seriously and say, yeah, let's go take a real good look at that to see. Because by the time it makes it to Broadway, you might not like that particular story, or you thought the costumes or something weren't quite there. But the reality is that you can't dismiss the show. It's a Broadway show, and it hits a level of quality that deserves to be seen by a wider audience.
So what are your plans for the next step of Broadway HD? You've taken off so dramatically, and you've won all these Telly Awards. Yes. You want to tell us what a Telly Award is? A Telly Award is
an award for television, for something that's televised, and so there's different categories that we've won. But it's sort of like I want to say, the Tellys wouldn't like that, but like a lesser Emmy Award is kind of what it is, because it's a different area that you hit of where the distribution is for it.
So how many do you have back there?
I think we have 9
You never counted?
Nine, no.
It looks
Yeah.
like more than 9 to me.
Yeah, and we have some.
haven't counted anyway.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and then we have some W2 awards, which are also television awards. So we're being recognized. We've also been nominated. A lot of our shows have been nominated for Emmy Awards. And a lot of our shows that we capture have either won Tony Awards or been nominated for Tony Awards. So there's a lot of award winning. Not that that's the only the only way to judge something is by awards, but it's certainly, when you rise up to that level in
there's a level of
either
standard
the
there that's
theater
of excellence.
industry or the TV industry, that it really, these people, everybody, they're just like top of their game with all of this, and that's the best way to go at it, I think, and we really do, as I said, we really are, we're growing, to your point. We have subscribers in over 123 different countries
How
at this
exciting.
point. It really is, because
Do most of these subscribers, have they seen Broadway before? I mean, is it a whole new venture for them?
We don't know exactly how many of them have, but from the countries that we're looking at, the chances are probably not unless they've traveled to New York.
Mm-hmm.
So the Mecca is here in New York. There's 41 Broadway theaters. There are on average 30 new Broadway shows every single season.
Wow.
So the turnover is tremendous. And with that, when big shows go out and they say we're going to do a big tour, they go to, quite often it's 40 cities. So if you're going to 40 cities, you've already missed probably 10 states going out. And if you weren't there in the 2 weeks that show went through,
Right.
Dallas or something, and you couldn't get to Dallas, then you missed it. So it's and then add the rest of the world to that. And with Broadway shows, Broadway is a luxury brand that is recognized around the world. When we've traveled, and I tell people that I work on Broadway, they're like, "Oh my God, that's amazing! That is just so amazing!" And then you say, "Well, what was the last show you saw?" And they say, "I've never seen a Broadway show." So the power of that brand recognition around the world is there, but they've never had access. So now what we're doing is we're giving them access to, as I said, now we have over 300 shows. It's a streaming platform on demand that is 24/7, so people can engage with this type of full-length content any time of the day or night, wherever they are. And that is just opening up a whole new world for them. And that, what we've seen with digital captures is, we've only got anecdotal evidence at this time, but we're constantly looking at meaning we don't have anything that proves, like somebody saw. We do have people that will tell us, "I saw the digital capture of She Loves Me, and then I bought a ticket to see it. I saw Cats, and then I went and saw a production, a live stage production. I saw Phantom of the Opera on Broadway HD, and then I bought a ticket to Phantom of the Opera." So there's that, but we don't have real hard statistics that prove that everybody that sees a digital capture goes and sees that exact show.
Right.
But the common thread that's coming back is when people are exposed to this, and the digital capture is different than a movie. So they want to go and they want to be, because they see the audience from behind. It's quite often you see the back of somebody's heads, or occasionally we try and put reaction shots of audience, whether they're applauding or they're laughing or they're crying at these shows, and people want that experience then after they see that. And the shows that are then turned into regular Hollywood movies don't have that same reaction. They say, "Oh, that's a great movie," but it doesn't make them say, "I've got to go see a show. I want to go to Broadway and see that show." So what Broadway HD is doing with aggregating all this, content into one place and we're feeding the theater fan. So the theater fan, the regular Broadway ticket buyer, has an opportunity to see a show without it being 8 o'clock at night for a curtain, but they also have an opportunity to share it with somebody else. And so there's a lot of gifting that goes on with Broadway HD subscriptions, because theater fans, especially Broadway fans, are really they're so it's word of mouth. It's bringing somebody else along, and that's just sort of the culture of theater goers, is that you bring somebody else along to the theater. And then the other Broadway HD subscriber is the person that will never set foot in a theater. They'll just never get to Broadway. Broadway doesn't come around. When these tours go out, a big international tour could do 35 countries. We've got 123 countries that are subscribing and watching this content. So there's countries that a Broadway tour, it just doesn't make economic sense for them to tour. They're not going to go through that country. There's not enough yet for fans that are going to buy the ticket to produce a whole live show and either bring it to one, the capital of that country, or to go through that country on tour. And so this is a way that people can connect with this type of content. And it's democratizing this, what was once a very elite art form, and making it available for people that wouldn't otherwise get there. And so we're taking down any barriers of geography. We're taking down any barriers of price. The average price for a musical now on Broadway is $125
Right.
in our service. So access to all 300 shows is $100 a year. So you can watch any one of our shows, 24/7. Exactly, compared to that, which that's not the whole purpose of the our Broadway HD platform. It's to really, create, satisfy the current Broadway ticket buyer and engage the next generation of theater goer. And then the other thing that we do is that we bring down any, barriers of any sort of limits that people might have. Because if we're
Limit by what? What do
fortunate,
you mean by
well,
limit?
I mean just physical limits. I mean if
Physical
we're
limits, okay.
lucky enough to age, we become disabled as we age. So your mobility is limited, your sight becomes limited, and your hearing becomes limited. So there's people that used to live in New York and go to the theater all the time, and now they're in Arizona or they're in Florida, and they just can't get there anymore. So
I never thought of that.
So one of the features that we have of Broadway HD is closed captioned. It's closed captioning for people that are hearing impaired, because they reached out to us
Right.
and said, we used to go to Broadway, we don't anymore. Like, hey, how about some closed captioning? Which
How cool.
we didn't launch with closed captioning because we didn't have to on the internet. There was nothing that, regular that we had to. But then once we had some people reaching out and going, there's a whole group of us here that would love to watch this, but we need closed captions. And, we are flexible enough to be demand driven and say, you know what, there's a whole universe out there that needs closed captioning, and let's see what that looks like. And we were able to put that up. And in addition to entertaining them is just awesome. And I think that's the whole point of the Trailblazers rail, is to give people a look, not only give people a look at theater that they might not. It's that recommending something kind of thing, like, oh, you're a theater fan, you came on here, take a look at these things. These are pretty special. You didn't come on here looking for this, or that wasn't the last thing you watched.
Right.
But here, we think these are pretty special. And I think that, as we go forward, people are gonna, and we're curating this Trailblazer rail, this category, that people are gonna come on and say, I really kind of like their recommendations,
No, you
and I'm
add
going to
to
watch
it?
more.
So you'll
We're
be
gonna-
adding to it as
We
you
will
go.
be rotating. So
Rotating
this month.
meaning?
This month it is in honor of women's history, so it's
Okay,
women.
got
So
it.
it's women directors and playwrights and composers. Maybe for June we do LGBTQ content that we feature. We might do Women Again for Mother's Day, or whatever the voice that we want to raise up for that month.
Right.
That's the one that we're going to raise up and say, okay, look. And what that does is it also will inspire other people to make more theater. So that it inspires people to go to the theater, it inspires people to make theater, and it inspires people that, for stories that aren't the ones, as I said, it's sort of like, it's not Cats, it's not Shakespeare, but it's a really good story. And those voices need to be showcased. They need to be highlighted. When we do the captures, that are, as I said from the beginning, the easiest ones to do are the recognizable names of, recognizable titles, and that have Hugh Jackman. So we have
Right.
Oklahoma with Hugh Jackman. That sells itself, because it's Oklahoma and it's Hugh Jackman. So that needs no extra lift at all. It just, they're just coming along and can't wait to see Hugh Jackman sing. But other things that we do that we really think is special stories or special storytelling that you might not know, you might not be looking for, that we can bring those up, and those will catch the attention of other people when they're looking. I mean, we just had Women's Day on Broadway, and again, talking about there's not a pipeline issue. There's plenty of talented women out there that can write songs, that can write lyrics, that can direct shows, that can, produce shows. They're all out there. They're just not in in the front of people's minds when they think of things. They go to the ones they know. It's like they go to the ones, they go to the place that you know. And then quite often, if we're going to really unravel that subject of women, so sometimes when women get onto Broadway or get even an off-Broadway or regional story, the only thing that remains after the curtain comes down, if there's no digital capture, is either the word of mouth, which is just limited to that neighborhood, or reviews. So, and quite often we have seen that when you don't have women critics go in to a story that is written by a woman with women's stories and voices, again, it's somebody looking at it and going, I don't get it, and it's dismissed. So if you have a capture, then somebody gets to see that show and make their own determination on whether this was a worthy show or not. And I think that's really important, that there is there's a life. This show will go on forever in a digital form. And that creates the desire to do that show again in a local community. So with licensing of shows, so shows like you said, the pinnacle is Broadway usually. So when a show gets to Broadway, one of these 30 new shows every year, those shows are guaranteed that they're going to get licensed, which means a company comes in and says, I'm going to publish this, and then I'm going to get the rights to it so that if somebody wants to do it after it goes on to Broadway, then I can license it to them to do in a regional theater or a student production or a community theater someplace. And the author or composer of that piece will actually get paid from that through the licensing company. But what happens is on Broadway there's 30 new shows every year, and those get published. And then there's about 200 off-Broadway spaces in New York, and sometimes half of those get published. So there's another 100. And then you look at like regional theaters that are developing shows that they might get, there's probably 40 big regional theaters that are producing things, and those, say half of those get. So we're up to like 150 new shows that get published every year.
Right.
So when you're in your regional theater, how do you know which show you want to do? And what we're finding is that the shows that get licensed for future productions, more often than not, are the ones that will have what we call digital assets. So that means there's a digital capture to it, or there's a soundtrack. So there's a cast recording of it. Those things, for whatever reason, will be licensed more often than something that's just the written play.
So inadvertently, you're really increasing licensing. Is that what you're
Yes, yes.
I never even realized that.
Yes.
So you have such a passion for what you're doing. It just exudes from you, and you're so excited about being able to do it. It's what makes it apparent why this is so successful.
Oh, thank you,
yeah.
thank you. Yeah, I mean, if desire was we'd all be.
But it's so many multifaceted objectives that you're hitting at the same time. Besides bringing Broadway to the world, I didn't even realize how it affects the licensing of shows and people that have never seen it before. It's just amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. I know you're so supportive of us. I thank you so much.
Well, it's something worth supporting.
Thank you.
We're gonna have maybe a clip of something to show them, but we're not gonna tell you what it is because it's gonna be a surprise.
Yeah, to me too.